Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome along to our Blether with. Tonight we have a fantastic guest who's going to be talking all about independent bottlers, which is great because we get to talk about more than one brand, more than one distillery, and more than one journey. So, looking forward very much to that. You will notice I am myself just now and also in a new location. I am coming live to you from the shop. So we normally stay with us this week. So we are. I've been kicked out. Probably best due to the internet. They've got a young kid who likes to use up internet. So probably best that I'm down here. It's a good excuse to show the wee bar that we've got upstairs as well in our tasting room for those who haven't seen it. And I am on my own just now. We are waiting for Russell to pick his computer up off the floor after he's been kicking it around a little bit. He's having some technical issues. So hopefully he will be joining us very soon. Good evening, Dave. Good evening, Keith. It's great to have you on live along with everyone else who's watching. And to you guys who maybe catch up later on, good evening to you. Thanks for coming in and watching us. At your leisure. Michael Cochran, your team is finishing second in that Champions League group. Just seen the draw. So, for those who don't know, I'm a Liverpool fan. Yeah, we're just recovering from that terrible Monday night result. But this team have drawn Rangers in the Champions League group, which is going to be great. I think Rangers are going to be tough, actually. They're going to gives a game, they'll be well up for it. I think there's always a point to prove against the English teams. So let's look forward to that. Anyway, I'm not sure if Dean is a football fan. We'll maybe get onto that while we're chatting away. But while we're waiting for Russell, let's bring Dean on. We will let you guys on live just now. So here we go.
How are we doing, guys? All good. Thank you very much, Mike. Yeah, it's been, as I was saying, in the backstage area of this virtual chat earlier. It's been quite a week up here in Speyside, beaming to you from our Dallas Do house. You can see behind me. Usually, it's filled with guests for whiskey dinners, whiskey tastings. And actually, this week we've had quite a few guests just in the other room doing some traditional dance, being flung around the room with their first introductions. It's been quite a hectic week in terms of guests coming from. Actually, we've had some guests from Mauritius, Japan. Had some friends over from Germany yesterday and today. So it's been very busy on the hospitality side, but also probably more poignant to my role with Murray McDavid is it's been busy selecting casks for future bottlings. Some this side of Christmas, but we're now looking into Q1 of 2023. It's been a busy week. That's probably why you can see some bags under the eyes. Some late nights, but you know it's all a walk in the park for the life of an independent bottler. You know, there's never a.
That's why I have the camera further back, so you don't get that close up view of my eyes. Just sit back and keep away from it. Yeah, I can imagine because you guys are obviously thinking now next year getting in the schedule for bottling plants and whatnot. Have you got your own bottling plant up and running now? Because you were in
very nearly, yeah. We're actually, Ben, my colleague Ben Chambers, of course, who you know, has been really chomping at the bit to get some whiskey through our bottling hall at Dandaleath, which is just down the. If you know Speyside, you know. I'm sure you would have heard of Macallan, of course. The distilleries. Just a wee producer in the heart of Speyside who like to sell their whiskey with cars these days, which is very exciting. Very cool.
Driving and whiskey.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, it does bring up, a very interesting conversation about whiskey and the evolution of like branding, design, which I'm really interested in as a whiskey fan. We've seen over the years the developments of some really quite lavish packaging, be it decanters, be it the cases, the tubes, but we're now starting to see it really step up even further, which, as an appreciator of design, absolutely love. And the distillery itself is, of course, not the most traditional that you'll see in Speyside, but it's certainly quite an experience. We have a wonderful little craft distillery bottling hall just down the road, opposite the turning right up to Macallan. You'll see our ACO Limited sign, Danderleith Bottling Hall, and we are just in the very early days of putting our first spirit through that. So it's very, very exciting for us as a team. I hope it really changes the dynamic of what we can do. We can turn around whiskies, release whiskies in a much more fluid way, because being at the mercy of third-party bottling halls is historically, it's been the way of the industry. You would send your casks from up here from our warehouses at Coleburn. They would go down to the central belt, and historically you may have been privy to a turnaround time of maybe 6 weeks to 2 months, if you were lining things up with your dry goods in a good orderly fashion. But if we were to send but today, of course, we're in that kind of, it's actually late for Christmas bottlings at this point. But if we were to send a cask down to be bottled, and it would arrive at the bottling hall next week, let's say, we wouldn't receive bottled goods until possibly mid-November, which it really is an issue when Ben lines up customers who want things today. They want things yesterday. So having our own bottling facilities will hopefully we'll be able to strategize our larger bottlings elsewhere, but look to bring them all in-house going forward. Certainly 2023 will be really rocking and rolling those casks in there. So that's going to be great. That's going to be really great.
And will you focus purely on your own bottlings, or would that be an opportunity to bottle for other local independents or distilleries?
Well, the way things are lining up at the moment with the demand, there's going to be a lot of Murray McDavid running through there, which is great. Ben being the head of sales, he's always lining up customers who are wanting bespoke single casks, be it for their whiskey shops, or it might be our importers in Germany, let's say. There will be a lot of Murray McDavid going through there, but of course Murray McDavid's being under the umbrella of ACO Limited, who have one of the largest whiskey brokers since 22 years ago. ACO started, and predominantly the business started life as brokering casks to independent bottlers. So we still have a lot of those customers, which we do a lot of single cask bottling for. We do brand concepts for them. We have a design team that makes sure that all of their labels are SWA compliant, and it's offering the whole package from start to finish. That's what ACO has brought to the table. But it's Murray McDavid, which were ACO's first brand, which I helped relaunch with Edward, our managing director, back in 2015. It's been quite a journey on that front. But also, being with the company for nearly 8 years now, the growth of our brand and the growth of ACO has been tremendous. We didn't have this place a couple of years ago. And when I joined the company, I think we're a team of around 10 people. And now we are a team of around 60 with additional maturation warehouses at Royal Brackland Distillery. We have Dandelief, as I mentioned, but we have the vast distribution centre, which will be a distribution centre down in Livingston, just outside of Edinburgh, which is where most of the team are based today. Yeah, so it's been really quite mind-blowing to see. You know, we were back in 2015. We were working in Edward's beautiful kind of farmhouse down in Gloucestershire. There were 4 of us there and 6 or 7 of the guys working at Coleburn. So seeing the company go from working in a small farmhouse together into, you know, this really quite amazing team has been an awesome journey. Yeah,
I can imagine. It's seeing the arms and legs kind of grow and all new kind of things going on. It's I mean, we went last year. Ben took us. Beginning of this year, Ben took us up to the warehouses at Coleburn, and some of the food you've got there. I was needed. I'm not going to get him and throw him under the bus here and say we were tasting it, but it looked incredible. Some of the casks from just about every distillery imaginable. And
yeah. I mean, we really do make quite a big song and dance about the sheer diversity of spirits at Coleburn. I mentioned spirits. I use the term spirits selectively because we are maturing more than just single malt whiskey at Coleburn. You know, we have still a few casks of Armagnac, 28-year-old Armagnac. We have some of that in there, some cognac, even grappa. I saw just this week, which is very interesting, unusual. Lots of rum as well. But yeah, you're right. I mean, when you consider there's around 130 different makes of spirit at Coleburn. There's around, I think it's around 125 different cask types. Spirit aging from, you know, being distilled this year right the way back to 1964. So when you factor in those 3 components, you know, origin of spirit, wood type, and age, you know, the sheer range of flavor that is to be experienced at Coleburn is really quite staggering. Which is why I love so much bringing guests to Coleburn. Certainly, Spirit of Speyside is the main point in the calendar of the year that we do that. But we do. I mean, we don't offer any like official tours of Coleburn. You know, we don't have a visitor centre. But if anybody was interested in coming up to see what we have going on, then please get in touch. I'd love to show you some things that we're working on. That'd be, as I say, we went up as part of our Highland Whisky Academy at the start of the year, and also obviously selecting the cask. But I think Keith said he was drinking this now. He's got their Tusk, so that's what we now, which is one of the fruitiest whiskies I've had in a long time. It's gone down really well, 59.7%. It drinks like a 50%er. Really good brand. It was a tough choice because I think was it 6 casks we looked at. Yeah, all very different. And there was one very, very close second place, the Colila Sherry cask. And we hummed and hawed, and so just the final selection, because there's Russell and Aaron on site to do the tasting there. And then the samples flew back, we split between the rest of the team, blind, just numbered 1, 2, 6. Awesome. And asked them to score. So this came back as the overall kind of favourite. Colila was very close second, and I was very tempted to go with it and say, actually, we haven't done an Isla one yet. We've done the side. But being from the kind of northeast of Scotland, we thought maybe the peat wasn't diverse enough
that we went for the wine exploration rather, so went for that difference with the safety net of a Speyside, I suppose. Still a little cautious on.
Yeah, well, I think it's an awesome selection because it has that extra point of difference, and I always think about this when selecting and launching whiskies under the Murray McDavid brand, certainly with the Benchmark series, which generally the Benchmark series always single malt, but usually between the ages of 8 to 14-year-old. Always exceptions to the rule, but that's generally it. But it's in this series where we look to create single malts with a point of difference. And the Othrusk there is a very good example of that. With the I think it's nearly 3 additional years in the it's a Justinos Madeira winery. We actually collaborate with particular cask suppliers, and it's those cask suppliers that are creating spirit, wine, beer, who actually bottle the stuff for people to enjoy, rather than these casks that are seasoned and the contents aren't ever consumed in its own form. And Justinos, being a very old producer over in Madeira, we've been importing their cask for, I think it's around 4 years now. And here he is. There's got to be some kind of forfeit.
Oh, I'll tell you, guys, my camera's not even working now. I mean, I'm absolutely sick of this. It's telling me to shut down some other. There's no other devices using my camera. I couldn't be more angry with this effing bloody computer. Oh my god! Oh my god! Anyway, I'm here. I'll try and figure it out. Maybe nobody needs to see me.
I was wondering, we tried this before with Ian, was it Ian Logan? We saw with the camera.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if we can just put a picture up, but we can hear you fine. It's really when you take your computer out the window, you damage the camera.
Oh my god, it's got to be the worst twist of irony ever. There's me always boasting about how good my internet connection is in Alberta, and
the last thing Russell said to me, Dee, before he left was, because at the end of the show, he said, "Have you got a computer that works down here? And have you got your charger with you?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm all good to go."
That's the kiss of death right there. Yeah,
absolutely.
So Keith Duncan says, "You've never looked better." So, and he's gone again.
And I thought I was having a tough week. Oh, good lord!
He's never had it better. He's just back from a.
Oh dear. But yeah, I was on the point there of being very particular with our cask partners, and we have a really tight wood policy, which we get the it must be 2 months notice before empty casks are being dispatched. So we'll create a filling plan over this end. I'll send it to the Coleburn team, who most of our casks that are re-racked today will be over at our Royal Blether warehouses. Coleburn is where we tend to mature our older stocks, and Blether is where we bring our younger stocks. Because of the nature of the warehousing, it's racked warehousing. It's got a capacity of 40,000 casks at Blether. So much faster in scale. Coleburn at the moment is around 3,000 casks. That's where most of our young stock comes when we're buying it from various producers from around Scotland. So that's where most of.
Is that just so you can keep a closer eye on it as it kind of gets to that stage where it might over mature or over oak? You can kind of keep a closer eye on it there.
Yeah, well, what we're doing still is, it's been I think it must be over 3 years now, potentially even 4. We're undertaking a consolidation of our cask stocks. because we've had the facilities at Brackler for it must be 3 and a bit years now. Gosh, it's crazy how the time flies. But before we had Brackler, most of our cask stocks were in third-party warehousing, which is proven to be pretty disastrous in some cases, because you don't, of course, have the same attention of care. You know, the warehouse operatives at, let's say, North British, you know, they aren't looking out for our casks in the way that we would if they were in our facilities.
Yeah.
But also things like having access to the stock to make these re-racks. You know, some of these warehouses just won't offer the service of re-racking. If they do, you're in line with all of their other operations. So, you know, let's use these Justinos Madeira casks as an example. If these casks are landing this week, but they're landing at a third party, you're in line with the rest of their operations. So those casks could be sitting around for, you know, a good couple of weeks, even months, which is not good for maintaining the freshness that we're looking for, because, you know, it's that freshness which translates into that real juiciness that you're experiencing in that off thrust there.
Yeah.
So again, you know, another point as to why it's been so great to have our own larger facilities. We're still undergoing that process of consolidating stock. Still have quite a lot of parcels elsewhere, but the plan is, I think we've got another 1.5 years, I think, until we have all of our casks in our own hands, which is going to be great. It's going to be great. Yeah, I mean, of course, we strategized our older stocks back first. That's all being looked after at between Coleburn and Brackler at the moment. But yeah, it's quite scary. I see some of the casks coming in from third party, and you know, I see Jason, who's our head cooper. The look on his face when some of these casks come off the lorry, you know, it looks like, I mean, usually with our warehouse at Coleburn, you know, actually upstairs we keep the dunnage just 2 high, downstairs 3 high, and you know, even rolling off 2 high, you know, we've got this great big sponge that you roll the cask off onto. Some of these casks coming back from third party, you know, it looks like they've pushed it off the 8 rack without a sponge. You know? I can almost just imagine it bouncing around. We've seen some real horror shows. But
so you got your own full-time cooper on site then?
Yes, that's it. Yeah, Jason, you'll see him on our social media feed. I think I took some nice pictures of him a couple of months ago, looking all smiley and all cheery in our warehouses at Coleburn. He's been fantastic with not just maintaining the stocks at Coleburn, but also you know, offering that real attention to detail experience onto the empty casks that are coming in from Justinos or Koval Distillery in Chicago, because you do see quite a lot of issues, you can see issues that have arisen during transportation. All of our casks come in their full capacity, so we don't break any casks down. Yeah, occasionally we'll see some like hairline cracks. The bung stave, you know, might be showing signs of wear and tear. So you know, with our longer term program of maturation, these hairline cracks, you know, they don't look so bad on first inspection, but you know, if they're in the racks at Brackler, you know, those cracks can soon become much bigger with the stress of all that weight of liquid in the cask. So yeah, it's been fantastic having Jason on the team, and the rest, you know, having somebody so experienced in with so much level of expertise, that just rubs off across the whole team as well. So
everyone can learn from him as well. They'll pick up things that they wouldn't necessarily if they were working a warehouse on their own. You know, they would maybe pick up things from him that they can then use, and it helps the whole team. You know.
Oh yeah, I
Well,
try and shadow him. I try and shadow him all the time. Yeah, because you know, just him just casually walking around the warehouse, just like pointing at things, like making these comments. I'm like, huh? What? Tell me more. Tell me everything. Like he's just very casual about having just so much knowledge and experience. And
it tends to be a team running in the whiskey industry. That's how back these kind of experts are aces in their field, how humble and just unassuming they can be.
Absolutely.
Top level, right away through the whole industry, isn't it?
Yeah, it's wonderful. You know, it's that sharing of knowledge, which has certainly helped me get to where I'm at today. But you know, it's meeting people who have been in the industry for decades, and you meet these kind of people, and you realize, okay, like there's so much more to learn and experience, which is, to me, it's super exciting.
Yeah, we've got Alistair Gray, who is on, and he said that he loved the tour of the Coleburn warehouse during SOS so much. There's some lovely whiskey in there. But it was really jealous because I've been in the Coleburn warehouse twice, and I never got to try any whiskey from.
You clearly had the wrong host that day. Yeah, we'll have to.
Remedy that. Oh, here you go. Here's upset.
Hello.
Well, we'll do the other one. Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
We can indeed. Yeah.
Cool. Amen. So this is IT came to the rescue there. Mrs. Brinklow.
Well, it's nice to join us. Very, looking at the clock here, you're only getting paid for half an hour tonight.
That's fair enough. I'm only going to spend any wages on booze anyway to recover from this. Like,
I need to spend it on a new computer.
Well, you know what? I might have to just suck that one up this time. How are you doing?
All good, Russell. Yeah, all good, mate. All good. We were, we were actually saying just before, because I was having a bit of a technical nightmare as well this end. So yeah, you're not the only one, but it happens. I was saying, we've been kind of exploring this new realm of sharing video over the internet for what must be nearly 3 years now. But
I know.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, there's always.
It's not often I can sit back in smug mode and say that I've been alright. I'm loving it. Usually. So, Dean, how did you? I was going to say, how did you get involved with, first of all, whiskey, and then into the Murray McDavid journey? What was your first steps through that?
Oh, yeah. So, this would have happened maybe, I guess it's around 13 years ago now. Was actually, it's probably going to be surprising to some people, but it's actually the first time that I really started to delve into Scotch whiskey. Was 13, 14 years ago. And I would have just finished university studying advertising photography. So naturally, of course, I go into the world of whiskey. I don't know how that works. No, but what happened was I started as finished university as a very stubborn minded freelance photographer. That's what I was set out to do. Didn't ever want to do weddings because I had far too much artistic pride. I didn't want to go down the route of just bashing out weddings, even though they pay, very, very well. So I was a kind of struggling artistic freelance photographer who, jobs were coming in, but I needed a kind of consistent money stream. And I'd been working in various bars since I was 18. And I loved working behind bars, just chatting to people. It didn't necessarily start off chatting about drink, because I'll be honest, I mean, I knew nothing about drink when I was 18. I would have been on the Strongbow and Blackcurrant, I think would have been my choice of tipple back then.
It's the best head of the dog.
That would have been it back then. But yeah, to get a kind of consistent stream of money in through my struggling freelance days, I popped my head into this rather upmarket bar in Cheltenham, where I still have my home today. And they had some live music on. It was pretty cool. And got a job there. But I didn't know it was a whiskey bar at the time. So it was quite awkward on my first, actually it was my second shift, where a group of burly old guys came in. I think it was just after we host a big cricket festival in Cheltenham, which attracts a lot of people who enjoy a bit of a drink, let's say. So these guys came in fully enthusiastic after a long day of watching the cricket, and they asked me to take them on an exploration of flavour, which I had no idea what they meant about that at the time. We had probably about 20 whiskies on the shelf. All would have been single malts at that time. So I just died of embarrassment. Here I was working at a place where whiskey was a big thing for the bar. And I knew nothing about what I, in this job role, was selling. Some of these whiskies were 20, 25 pound a dram. So, I wanted to be comfortable with giving them this journey of flavor. So that kind of moment of shame almost just spurred me on to start popping open bottles, start nosing, start reading about distilleries. And, before you knew it, I was hosting tastings, and we grew that whiskey shelf from 20 to 350 whiskies, and started, weird and wonderful shelves, Calvados, tequila, eau de vie, and so the passion for spirits really grew in that time, and my photography commissions started to dwindle because I was just always in a book reading about some new release or some distillery that I was unaware of. So I got the whiskey bug. And back in 2014, that's when I crossed paths with Edward, managing director of ACO. And he was actually hosting a tasting of cask samples of old Bushmills. And I just kind of got into this tasting room where usually if the tasting's happening in a town, it will be branded, it will be advertised. There was none of this with that. I just got an invite from the hotel manager at the time, one of my good friends, Callum, who invited me along. I had no idea what to expect, but I was just kind of blown away by the whiskeys, but also the fact that there was this company, ACO, right on my doorstep. Edward's house where ACO started was just on the other side of Gloucester. So it's about, It's about 25 minutes away from Cheltenham. And I'd never heard of this huge whiskey broker before, because historically it's always been a trade company, business to business. They didn't have a forward-facing brand at the time. And just maybe a couple of months before this tasting, he had purchased the cask whiskey stock that had been entered into the Murray McDavid maturation program over at Bruichladdich. I think it was a parcel of around 400 casks. And he went over to Isla to meet the team and select cask, to confirm the parcel. And with that parcel of stock, the intellectual property for the brand was included in that deal. And I think 2013 was when that happened. It was never really the intention to revive Murray McDavid in the way that we have. But I met him at this tasting, and I caught wind that, you know, they had these goings on with the Murray McDavid stock, and I hadn't heard of the brand for a long while, because it did have that kind of hiatus of a few years of not bottling anything. So there was a silent period. But I just saw this as a real opportunity to just jump into the world of whiskey, because it was an absolute delight. You know, I still go to that whiskey bar, John Gordon's, on probably too often, actually, thinking about it. They're probably sick of the sight of me. Dreaming about the good old days of being behind the bar during race week, awesome times. But yeah, no, I still go there quite a lot. But it was, yeah, I'd been working there for, I think, nearly 5 years. I'd gone into the manager's position for the last 3 of those years, I think it was. Mm-hmm. So I was at a point in my life where I needed to kind of change, needed to take a step in another direction. And yeah, I just saw this tasting at this lovely hotel as an opportunity to just put it out there. You know, it was after a few drams, I will admit, that I did. I cornered one of the team. Actually, embarrassingly, in the bathroom. It gets brought up every Christmas, staff do. How he cornered a member of the team in the gents and begged him for a job. I'll never live it down. I'll never live it down. But I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here today if I, you know, didn't take actions into my own hands. So yeah, no, it was a bit of a strange journey into the world of whiskey on this side of the industry, but it's a very different role originally as to what I am doing today. You know, as I mentioned, you know, we were such a tiny team back then. There were 5 or 6 of us in the head offices down here or down there in Gloucestershire, and I started life off with Edward. We worked on the rebrand of Murray McDavid, introducing the newer categories. Of course, there's always been the Mission Gold in the gold tins, what was known as the core in the silver, which we've rebranded into the benchmark. But with ACO's stock holdings, we saw an opportunity to develop the brand into something much wider and being more all-encompassing for Scotch whisky as an entire category. So we introduced single grain in our select grain series. We do our blending in-house as well, with the vatting and the crafted blend. And that, I absolutely love that part of the process of whiskey creation is blending. It's something that gets overlooked a lot. And, you know, we only do in relatively small parcels. I mean, it's around 1,500 bottles for a crafted blend. And it just blows my mind thinking about these guys who are for blending for like Ballantyne's, or, you know, consistently for Johnny Walker. You know, the stock strategies. I mean, it's mind blowing. It really is quite amazing. But having the freedom to create these small parcels of blend is fun. And that's what we want our blends to be. You know, each batch matured in a different fashion. So the art of maturation story is still flowing through. Whether it's a blend that's been matured in beer casks, or more classically, you know, PX sherry. That's where we get really creative, hands-on, combining different styles of malt. But I'm probably most proud of our select grain series. You know, because I mean, the benchmark is fantastic. You know, affordable single malts matured in creative ways. Great, lovely. But the select grain series for me is exciting because it's not as explored as single malts, is in terms of celebrating it as a single grain. I mean, we all know that a 20, 30, 40-year-old grain is going to be delicious. We have those stocks. However, we have a lot of young grain as well. So it was really back in 2016 when I started to really manage the maturation of Murray McDavid stocks, is that, we need to start introducing some younger grains into the market, not to compete by any means with younger malts, because, it's chalk and cheese. The styles of distillate completely different. The flavor profile, completely different. The texture completely different. So, working with young, sweet, creamy North British, further maturing that spirit in, we've had the port finish. We're just releasing a Tokai finish, North British, which is really quite bonkers, really quite amazing. So juicy, so fruity, lots of sweetness in there. But yeah, it's that experimentation of maturing young single grain, which I've not really seen done in the industry. So it's quite a proud moment to see our grains at younger ages getting out there. And
do you have to take a different kind of look at it? Is it completely different finishing or maturing grain in these kind of casks and malt? Because grain is naturally quite a more delicate kind of. I can imagine you can lose that grain flavor quite quickly in something like a sherry or a port or something like that. Could you have to be a little bit more delicate or?
Yeah. I mean, I would actually probably say that some malts that we work with are more temperamental to work with in some of these heavier casks. I mean, the likes of young Invergordon, Invergordon Young is so oily, it's so estery. It's almost like some rums in that respect. It's so like hard hitting in the structure of the spirit. Really viscous, really full. I'm just trying to think of some Invergordon bottlings that we've done now. Actually, we haven't released anything recently of young age of Invergordon, but the North British in the port was probably the most extreme in terms of the balance between oak and spirit. But it worked well because we have the the spicy influence from that European oak, that depth of fruit from that port, but the creaminess of the North British grain kind of countered nicely with the spice of that European oak. And that was a finish of, I think that was 18 months. So we haven't explored any long-term finishing as yet with grain. It's always been the kind of year to 2 and a bit years finishing. It's older grain, the Invergordon that I'm thinking of, which is the absolute sherry bomb, which was quite amazing. But that had been initially filled into sherry butts, but it really held its own. As I say, Invergordon, I think, is probably the powerhouse of the grains in terms of spirit structure. Devon's an interesting one to work with, really spicy when it's young. So we've put some kind of sweeter spins on the cask finishes for the Girvan. I think we've got a PX coming out of the Girvan. So balancing, that spicy spirit with that really viscous style of PX, the sweetness, that kind of figgy fruit works really nicely. So I think you can be actually a little bit more brutal with some of these younger grains because, they generally don't have, when young, the same complexities as, let's say, a 12-year-old Linkwood, a Glenlossie. There's delicacies already within that spirit, which I think you need to be a little bit more protective of. Grain being rigorously distilled, it strips a lot of the life out of it. introducing that grain to big, powerful casks is proven well. It's proven well.
We have to just pop a comment on this. Tobias from Germany says if you put good grain into good casks, you'll get a great product. A lot of grain is in poor casks. Great for aging beyond 30 years, but not great for an example, a 16-year-old who's plopped on there. So yeah, just kind of backs up what you were in there.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. Yeah, and this is a kind of concept that I have always in my mind is the theory of aging whiskey and maturing whiskey. You know, aging whiskey is the process, in my mind, of leaving a North British in a refill bourbon cask or refill sherry hogshead, whatever it may be, for an extended period of time, whether that is 20, 30, 40 years, you know, allowing the complexities to develop slowly in the environment. You know, you're creating the intricacies, whereas maturing with the addition of a finishing cask, you know, is a little bit more brutal. Not to say that one is better than the other. It's all about strategy of whiskey stocks, in my mind, you know, because it would be fantastic if we could wait 30 years for all of our whiskey to reach these dizzying heights. But, you know, our financial director will be kind of looking around like, what is going on? So that's partly why, you know, you will see us really kind of push the boundaries of even some of our younger single malts that we bottle. And I really tested people's understandings of whiskey maturation with our Spirit Speyside bottling. You know, I don't know if you guys managed to get any of the 5-year-old Inchgower.
We had in the shop, I think, try but I think, did we not have any?
I didn't get it.
No, we didn't get to try any. I think we had in the shop, like a case that didn't last very long.
In the shop?
Okay.
Yeah. Did we not?
No, I don't think so. No, I would have definitely got my hands on some of that. No, we didn't have any in Scar.
Well, if either way, I'll have to send you guys a sample. We've still got some open bottles up at Coleburn, so it was
people were definitely raving about that one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is it, and you know, it's testament to the point, you know, investing. Sorry, Russell.
I was just saying there were lots of positive comments.
Yeah.
About the Inchgower. Yeah.
Well, that's it, and that's you know, our strategy for our Speyside bottlings is we like to select something which will just absolutely surprise the whiskey fan with simply reading, because we are a very transparent bottler. You know, we put all of the information on our bottlings. So this 5-year-old Inchgower, you know, it's not a single malt that people are particularly familiar with. I mean, if you're immersed in the world of whiskey, then of course you'll have come across it, but it's not a name that is out there, bright lights. So that's a point of discussion.
A 5-year-old as well, you know, you see it more and more often now. Yeah, people are taking a chance, especially those in the know, kind of, who are following whiskies, I suppose. I think if you put a 5-year-old on a label 10 years ago, maybe a little less, it would be, no chance.
And that's what I love is you know, challenging perceptions with these little fun projects, because you know, I saw it all week at Coleburn. You know, people would be picking the bottle up like kind of thinking about it, like, do I really want to spend, you know, I think it was 60 quid a bottle at cask strength. I think it was 53.9% up around there. It spent near enough all of its maturation in first fill sherry. So it was a wonderful color, all natural, of course. But I saw people pick this thing up and immediately look at the age statement and like kind of and ah about, do I take a bottle? But then, you know, at the end of the tour, as soon as they nose it, it's like, oh, okay, here we go. You know, it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. So that's what I like to do with
I've
our
no
space.
idea. Gary Dunsire, City Whisky Club, has put on the Young Ledaig was a belter. I've no idea what dram he's speaking about, but I really enjoyed the 6-year-old Safe Haven whiskey, which I don't know if that's any connection to a Ledaig or not, but certainly that one.
Being the mystery malt, I can neither confirm or deny. But Safe Haven is actually the English translation from the word Pilash, which is the loch on the Isle of Mull, which supplies water to a distillery. And of course, the Safe Haven being peated, you can kind of hopefully start to unravel the mystery there. So I think this was our first batch, which is finished in PX. And it would have been PX from our partners over in Spain, Jimenez Spinola, who, I mean, these guys have been making PX sherry, you know, cultivating from this one grape since 1729. You know, it's an amazing family history and tradition that they have with creating their products. And again, as I said with the Justinos, it's so important for us to collaborate with these partners who are actually, you know, masters of their art, bottling the products, and it's enjoyed around the world. But with that's the first batch of Safe Haven. I was sampling the other night a batch for 2023, and we like to kind of maintain a product year in, year out. The Safe Haven will return, but it won't be in PX. We might do a bespoke cask somewhere down the line, but the batch that we've got coming for 2023, we're actually looking at Calvados at the moment. So where we've got a really lovely, luscious, rich finish with that PX, the Calvados is just the opposite end of the spectrum. You know, it's really, really zippy, really fresh. Of course, we get lots of those kind of apple notes running through there. So hopefully that people following our mystery malt journey can explore the Safe Haven and identify that core distillery character, but understand the influences that will take that spirit into. So yeah, that can be applied to our benchmark series. Last summer, wonderful 8-year-old liquid in our first fill Koval bourbon. We're just about to release a wonderfully rich same year liquid first fill Oloroso. Chalk and cheese in terms of cask finishing, but wonderful examples of what wood can do and how it can transform a distillery character. That's one to look at.
You had an incredible 8-year-old Craigellity, I think, was that in 2019? And I remember
that was the one we had on the tasting that you hosted for us, Dean. It was nuts. Yeah,
that was the One Cask.
Yeah.
No, it was an Oloroso sherry cask that we had. This was a Speyside, Spirit Speyside a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay. If it was a Speyside bottling, sure.
Yeah. We took it to I've got a pub as well in the brewery, and we took it in there at 8 years old on it. And I remember the amount of people who were like, no, it's right, not going for it, not going for it. You're like, guys, just try it. I think if I remember it was 60% on the nose, and it was just incredible, really, really good. And once people tried it, the word spread, and that was kind of great to be able to say, people that are drinking it, other than in a shop where you kind of, a lot of the time they're trusting you to say, this is good, take it home and try it. If it's not, take it back and I'll drink this stuff. pouring it and seeing the reaction, like, wow, that's really, really good stuff. So that's the difference. You probably learned being in the bar trade as well. The difference between people trying it for the first time and then, getting over that myth of age or single malt, single grain blend. Russell and I have a passionate feeling about blends. Vast underrated as well. We've kind of touched on that. So yeah, getting people to try it and realise that blends aren't crap, grain isn't crap. They've got a reputation, and yes, there are crap ones out there, but there's also very bad single malt releases. Because they're single malt.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's that classical phrase, getting liquid on lips, and seeing the reactions. And that's been so important for me to see over the past couple of years, seeing these reactions, whether it's at a whiskey festival, or it's actually been very difficult to gauge. I mean, I've almost not really gauged any proper reactions from like hosting Zoom tastings, things like that, because for me it's a challenging format. But when you're in a room, you're obviously a little bit more connected in terms of you overhear conversations and things like that, which I of course use that as feedback for future developments of products. And it's also super important from working in the bar. I used to find this a lot is just general current drinking trends. What's the flavor of the month? That also has been really nice to get back out to shows and start really connecting back with whiskey drinkers out there. And we've got a lot of shows now between this weekend and Christmas, which is really great. Lots of new members of the team to come and share our products with. We've actually got some new products coming as well, which is really exciting. New products in the sense that these products it's a completely new range. So it's not within the 6 categories that you may be familiar with. It's actually our first step into the world of, dare I say it, non-age statement whiskies. We will, of course, be maintaining our 6 core categories in the same way. Actually, there's going to be more of those than we've ever released before, being supported by our single cask releases for the UK, one of which I'm sampling this evening. It's a 11-year-old Ardmore, finished in first fill Oloroso for just over 2.5 years. Lovely dram. However, for some people that may be starting their journey in whiskey discovery, a big beast of a cask strength sherry drenched Ardmore might be a bit too much to be that introductory style. So what we've put together over the past year, I would say, is something a little bit more friendly, something a little bit more approachable. And this is one of them. This is a new product which we haven't actually launched yet. We're launching it up here next week at the Spirit of Speyside Distilled show in Elgin.
Okay, yeah.
Fruity and spicy is what they call Mike and me.
So you'll still see it is still very much recognizable as Murray McDavid, but we have the Cask Craft. This is the Cask Craft series. There's 6 of them. This is the classic sherry finish. So you'll see that we actually celebrate the cask style more than we do the spirit. You'll see Strafton is the spirit there. And this will be a combination of 4 to 8 year old single malts and a combination of refill, second fill, and first fill sherry casks, and bottled at 44.5%. So it has been chill filtered. And that was a decision that I took to just make an extra point of difference between our benchmark single malts, which are at 46%, 50%, and sometimes at cask strength. So that the idea of that chill filtration was just to take a little bit of the edge off of that younger spirit. But the sherry is probably the most traditional style, which each batch, the spirit will change, but it will entertain the same area on the flavor map. Probably my proudest creation of the cask craft on this batch is the peated finish. So we're always going to be selecting a unpeated malt. This batch we've gone for Glenelgin, and combination of first fill Islay casks and other peated casks like the Lechik from Safe Haven there. So this would have been finished for, well, combination of first fill and refill. The first fills have been doing their work for the last, it's just over 12 months. So we get a really lovely, gentle style of peat on that really citrusy, appley style of spirit. Really lovely, elegant, sweet sipper, that one, with that trace of smoke.
Can I just stop you for a second, because my head's fried with this whole tech thing. I'm trying really hard to concentrate. Did you say Glenelgin?
Yes.
A peated Glenelgin?
That's what we've created, absolutely.
That must be a first, and apart from back in the day.
Quite possibly, yeah. I mean, this is part of the Cask Craft series. Is, you know, the ethos of it was we still want to very much keep it connected to Murray McDavid with the art of maturation.
This is taking me back to Peter Kay with the garlic bread one. You know, garlic and bread. Peated in Glenelgin. It's a taste sensation. Yeah, but I mean that sounds amazing.
Did you pick that up, Russell? That it's not peated Glenelgin, it's Glenelgin finished in peated casks.
Yeah, but still, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's Glenelgin it's been manipulated by peat, and that just sounds incredible.
Yeah, well, that's it. We still want that point of interest because, you know, these are kind of put out there as, yes, introductory drams, but also kind of more everyday sippers. Because, you know, these are going to be retailing at around 35 pounds a bottle, whereas our benchmark generally starts at 45 pounds.
I'll have a case.
Yeah, so, you know, produced in much larger bottles.
This is the wonderful thing about being an independent bottler. You can go and do what you want, and that's the most fabulous thing. I mean, thanks very much for answering my questions when I sent them to you. But every single person that I spoke to, every single indie, the first thing they all said was, "We've got freedom," and I think that must be the most wonderful thing. You're not stuck to a distillery style. You don't have to follow a formula. You can think, "Yeah, we'd like to try this. I want to try that. I want to do this." And, you know, sticking Glenelgin and flavouring it with peat to me is completely out of the box, and I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, that freedom is it's the freedom in the discovery of flavour as well. I mean, going back to our UK exclusives, I've just put over the bottling instructions for some casks, which hopefully will release kind of late November. But oh my gosh, I've come across a cask which it's not often that like a whiskey will leave me in this room speechless. Like this is where I do the sampling, the whiskey selection, and there was I think there were 3 Kelly's 2014. 2014, I think that's right. 1 Madeira, 1 in Tokai, and 1 in First Fill Bourbon. And we've released a Kelly's Madeira maybe three years ago. The combination works, you know, as you have in the Othrusk there, really juicy, really vibrant styles of fruits, which combines really nicely. You get lots of kind of like well, just barbecue, like apples and things like that in there. Lovely. But the combination of the Tokai, the viscosity on these Tokai casks integrates so well with the peat, and it's I've not seen integration like it in a whiskey. I've kind of aspirational whiskies that I try and create in the styles of, and there was a long row a few years ago which somebody brought me for my birthday, which had been finished in a Tokai cask, and that bottle just did not last long enough. It was, it's one of my kind of desert island styles. Absolutely love the Long Row Red series as well. So that's very much a style of whiskey that I look to create in some kind of forms, whether it's within the benchmark. We have some of that safe haven in red wine casks at the moment. So that's kind of my Long Row inspired whiskey that will come late next year. But this Caerlila in the Tokai is, I mean, dangerous, very dangerous. It just bewitched me. As I say, the integration between the peats, like it's the viscosity of that Tokai. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. So yeah, I'll definitely have to make sure Ben sends a sample your way later on in the year of that. But it's that, going back to your point though, Russell, it is that kind of expression of freedom, as it were, on being an independent bottler. You know, there are whiskies that I see out there which, you know, I kind of take inspiration from, and you know, you can look to other brands for inspiration, but you know, then we can start toying with the ideas of combining different cask types, using different distillates. I mean, that Glen Elgin in the peated cask there, you know, as you say, it may not have been done before. So it's a very interesting proposition, and that's so exciting as a whiskey fan. Looking into the world of independent bottlers, you know, it's so diverse.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to jump back. There's a chap, Willis Peel, who is coming to our next Whisky Academy. So we look forward to meet you in person there, Willis. He was asking, so hopefully he's still on. I want to come back to this question. He's asking, how frequently do you sample your casks? And I suppose I'm going to link this into this whole conversation. You're Head of Whisky Creation, I think, is your title. Yeah. I think you must be the only one in the industry with that title. Maybe I don't know, but it's such a great title. It's not master creator, master blender, master whatever, because you're also dealing with so many different.
It's very accurate.
And yeah, I think
it says what it doesn't. That's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
So at what point, and just to tie this into Willis, at what point do you see a whiskey like that Glen Elgin and think, actually, we're going to play with that and we're going to do this? Or do you think, or you know, in that journey, what's your thought process on how the cask gets selected?
It's a bit of a juggling act. It is a bit of a juggling act because I mean, it's probably not the like the sexy side of the industry, but the realities of a whiskey company is you have sales targets. So each year, Ben, our commercial manager, the legendary Anya Harris, they will sit me in a room and we will discuss, you know, how many releases we need in the year. And at that point, that's when I start scratching my head and start looking back over past notes, because I have, of course, batches of stock which are forecast for 2023, 24. And you need to keep stock on rotation as well, because, of course, some casks aren't performing the way they should. Sometimes it's the spirit, which is the cumbersome part. You know, some real rich spirits, Glen Anarchy, Milton Duff can be quite a brute. Some of these Ben Rinnis as well, which those are probably the names where I have forecasted whiskies to be bottled 1 year, but actually you need to give them more time. You can't be as forceful because the spirit is so rich. But with lighter styles of spirit, let's say, well, Linkwood, love Linkwood. Glenbergie as well. You can see a shorter turnaround in terms of cask finishing there. But to answer your question, yeah, it is led almost by the sales team of what they need, and it's managing our 40,000 casks across Brackler and Coleburn. Really quite simple. I say simple. The easiest part of the job is selecting these single casks. We have many parcels of quality whiskies that have been in finishing casks for, in some cases, up to 4 or 5 years, and we're kind of now at the position where which we've not been in before, where we're actually having to get that spirit out of the cask because in some situations you are starting to see the balance from oak to spirit just being a little bit too toppy on the oak. So there'll be a process there of, does this qualify for a single cask? Does this is this going to be a vatting of 2-3 casks, or is it going to feature in the Caskcraft series, which these are batches of 12,000 per product, whereas the benchmark series on average is between 1,000 1,500 bottle parcels. So what we've created under the umbrella of Murray McDavid are those categories of brands which we can be a little bit more forceful on the maturation and release them younger. We have the older categories of the Mission Gold, where we can time our stock out to get to that point. And we've also now got the whiskies where we can bottle 4 to 8 years in the Caskcraft. So it's brand strategy and how you pull those through from cask. In terms of sampling, our kind of our old and rares, they'll all be sampled at least once a year. But the cask checks will happen quarterly. So Jason, Kevin, Dave, the team at Coleburn, they'll be walking the warehouses, inspecting our older casks for the integrity of the casks, making sure that there aren't any leaks or any cracked staves emerging or anything like that. So there's constant checks on the casks at Coleburn in terms of cask care, but liquid care also. You need to, of course, appreciate that these 30-year-old malts and older, the Angels have been to work. So we've got some low fill casks, which of course low fill casks are more susceptible to losing volume of alcohol, but also liquid as well. So we need to be really mindful of the strategies of releasing these older whiskies as well, because we have some 30 plus single malts which are kind of in what we call the danger zone. No singing, gentlemen, please. But the danger zone is anywhere falling below 44% alcohol. That's when we need to start creating a strategy, an exit plan, as it were. So it is pretty demanding in terms of that older stock, because of course you're dealing with whiskies that are, in some cases just eye-watering value, which is really quite scary. But the younger stocks at Brackler, we have an ever-rotating list of single casks that myself and Ben will offer out for bespoke bottlings. That'll be a list between 50 and 70 casks. And then I will have oh gosh, can't remember on the last count, but there'll be benchmark strategies for up until 2025. And as I say, we'll constantly be rotating stocks out if something's underperforming, or if something like some of these Tokai casks, we've got some Strathmill and Tokai, which I had envisaged bottling at a later point, 2024, but a little bit worried about that balance. I think we're going to have to do it next year, which isn't a problem because something can move a little bit further down the line. Quite flexible. Yeah. And this is the importance of having our own warehouse, so we can assess the stock in a much more fluid way.
Mm-hmm. This is like, you're just dropping in things like, we've got some Strathmill and Tokai. It's like going into your fishmonger and I'm saying, yeah, well, we've got some clams, we've got some razor clams, we've got some lobster. You're like, whoa. Sorry, what have you got? I need that. I mean, just dropping in wonderful sounds here in Strathmill and I talk. Strathmill and anything sounds absolutely fantastic.
And again, it is that spirit supply that we have. We've got some good spirit supply agreements which give us access to some of these, traditionally known as blenders malts, which haven't really seen the light of day. So to be given the kind of freedom to explore maturation styles on these kind of spirits is, it's a constant discovery. There's
a lot of that stuff that's actually coming in now, or is this? I mean, going back to the days of Mark and back in the early days, gosh, stuff you laid down.
Yeah, no, this is all stock that we've laid down. Absolutely. Yeah. So it'll be my strategy of which spirit goes into which casks. Because the realities of the industry, I mean, around probably 95% of cask whiskies that we're purchasing from distilleries will arrive to us in really tired refill casks, which, great for holding liquid, but in terms of developing, these characters that we're looking for, they're not so good. So,
that's a really interesting point that I think most people probably won't understand, because most people don't really understand about how independent bottlers get their whiskey. You've got Gordon McPhail, they've got long-standing relationships, they get new spirit, they've got a free tap of new spirit, and you've got other guys who are fighting with brokers and not really knowing what they're picking up. But it's really interesting to know that you're getting good casks of spirit that's just been held, and it's now up to you guys to go and manipulate it and get it into a good flavor. And that's something I didn't understand before. So,
sure. Yeah. And I mean, the way that I also explain it to people is, and this is testament to, the founders of Murray McDavid. Mark Rainier really was the one to kind of understand the idea that independent bottlers actually shopping or fishing from the same pool of casks. So, there might be a parcel of 150 2009 Strathmills out there, all in refill bourbon. Nothing wrong with that. Perfectly lovely, whiskey. However, if you've got 20 independent bottlers fishing in that same pool, 2009 Strathmill going in every direction, one releasing one in January, one in March, they're all going to be occupying a very similar flavor profile.
Yeah.
So Mark Rainier was the guy that really took this idea of additional cask evolution, acing, as it was known as back in the day, to move the flavor profile of this Strathmill 2009 into a new area of the flavor map by using a red wine, let's say. So that was, our origins back in 1994. That was the inspiration to actually create and make whiskies different from other independent bottlers at the time. And, we still grab that by the horns today, and it's grown arms and legs with things like the Cask Craft and many other of our select grain series. That's completely new to Murray McDavid. So, we still honor those traditions that Mark put into the brand many years ago.
That's
the freedom that you've got. Do you think, as an indie bottler, with a certain bit of freedom that you've got, probably a lot more than distilleries who have to stick to a certain profile and whatever, the laws laid down by the SWA, do you think in the current climate, are they too restrictive? Is there room for relaxing them? And because you see other countries like Sweden, Norway, Australia, England, haven't got those restrictions, and I get the idea that these are in place to protect us and have that continuity, I suppose. But are we in danger of maybe falling behind a little bit when other guys are experimenting with completely different casks, cherrywood and the likes?
Yeah, I mean, I do see both sides of the coin, because we do work a lot with the SWA. We remain quite close, mainly through the ACO side of the business, where we are dealing with a lot of international independent bottlers who have been customers for many years, and we've had to advise on label guidances, because some of the labels that you'll see in Europe, I mean, you only need to go on like Whiskey Base to see just the sheer catalogue of really dodgy whiskey labels, which are quite hilarious, but completely non-compliant today. So yeah, we're a member of the SWA. We keep in the loop with those guys. But we do, certainly I get frustrated because with these regulations of what can a whiskey journey through, because, it is restrictive in some sense, of course. But another frustration is, you see some of the bigger players in the industry kind of pushing boundaries and maybe getting away with things that smaller companies wouldn't necessarily. I mean, I don't know. I haven't really had the time to delve into this new Glenfiddich bottling. I say new; it's probably been out a couple of months now.
It's just the Orchard.
Sorry,
the Orchard.
Yeah. I mean, lovely dram. I quite enjoyed it for what it was. I think it's was it Somerset Pomona apple,
which it's like an apple brandy, distilled apple brandy. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I think they're based down in Somerset, aren't they?
Yeah. Basically a strong cider.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe I need to brush up on what is compliant, but I thought that was
they got a rap knuckles for having a cider cask finished, didn't they?
With Murray, yeah.
I remember that. Yeah. Well, I'm hoping they changed the rules on that, because we've got quite a few cider casks in the warehouses.
Listen, we'll happily help you drink them. Don't worry. It's,
yeah, we're hedging our bets on that.
I suppose labeling would be so. If you labeled something that was non-conformed to SWA, say a cider cask, would you get away with just calling it whiskey as opposed to Scotch whiskey or single malt whiskey or grain whiskey? Could you still just whack whiskey on the label and say this is?
Yeah, I think you could, but the more kind of compliant terminology, which is a terminology I absolutely detest, it strips all of the romanticism out of the age-old spirit of Scotch whiskey. They would, I think, ask you to refer to it as a spirit drink.
Yeah.
Which I just think is the most laziest term for something which really should be quite, creative, experimental referencing rather than just spirit drink. That's just horrible to me. But
maybe it sounds like a vodka or something.
Say that again.
It makes it sound like a vodka or.
Yeah, totally. I get that. They are looking to protect the integrity of the traditions of Scotch whiskey. No problem with that. But create a different category with a more interesting and reflective name. But going back to cider casks, I mean, I do still scratch my head about that one. There must be a historian out there who could delve into the archives of, cider production, because it's not a new industry. It's been going on for bloody hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years around the UK. It would have been a farmer's trade back in the day, and of course, Scotch whiskey being that kind of same origin story. There must have been trading of casks potentially, and I'm sure at some point a whiskey would have found its way into an old cider cask. Which, if that is the case, if we can find that historic trail, then that would warrant cider being on that approved list, because it would be deemed as a traditional cask.
How many distilleries? I mean, Ben Reek's the classic, but I mean, there's loads of other distilleries out there that you would say the new make spirit is orchard fruit based. So if you've got a spirit that's orchard fruit based, I mean, it makes sense to enhance that in a cider cask. I mean, that's a no-brainer. So,
it's a strange one. I mean, where there isn't. I mean, the mind-blowing thing is the rise in popularity of beer casks. We've started over the past 3-4 years to enter into that field, and this year is probably my most exciting. I say exciting, no disrespect to the previous guys, but most unusual collaboration, I would say, because previously, we've teamed up with more Beer Co down in Bristol, Spey Valley Brewery up here, over towards Keith. And this year is Wild Beer Company down in Somerset, who, the guys previously, we've created a stout together. We supply them with empty casks. They mature or age their beer in our whiskey casks. We take those casks back and further mature our whiskey. Wonderful. Everybody does stout, which is great. Works wonders with whiskey. We released a couple of months ago a really quirky UK exclusive bottling, 13-year-old Ardmore, which had been finished in a imperial stout cask from the guys down in Bristol, and it's a real divider. It is a real Marmite malt, but I love it. That real chocolatey creaminess on that smoke from the Ardmore at cask strength is a beast. But my point is, going back to Wild Beer, yes, we have a stout this year, no problem with that. But they're really kind of like-minded to us. They're quite a creative producer in what they do. And I think the beer is still available. It's called, oh no, I'm going to get in trouble. Oh no. It's called Living the Dram. Of course it is. It's called Living the Dram.
Okay.
Yeah, so Wild Beer Living the Dram. Look it up. Really cool. It's cool because of the concepts. One of the head brewers down there wanted to create a beer inspired by a whiskey sour cocktail. So we sent them some, actually, funnily enough, Glenelgin refill hogsheads. We sent them some Kailila casks, and they've created this this grapefruit IPA, which they've made into a sour beer in these peated and unpeated casks. They bottled the beer maybe 3 months ago, so there should still be some out there. We of course have those casks back up to Coleburn here, and we filled the stouts. We've got a Glenallachie which is coming along in one of their stout casks. That's going to be phenomenal. But from my understanding, I don't think I've seen anybody mature whiskey in a sour beer cask. And my point to that is, with something so influential like a big grapefruity, zesty sour beer, that is going to be kind of less traditional than, in terms of flavor, than a cider cask. So beer being all encompassing, I mean, we look at the guys down at, is it City Vault? down in Edinburgh, who make some crazy sour beers, you know, but because beer in the SWA's eyes is all-encompassing category, but yet you've got like raspberry sour beers, which are being treated the same as like an amber ale, you know. So what I'm trying to say is the craft beer craze, which I love because it is that journey of discovery of flavor and all of that good stuff. But I'm not calling for more regulation of beer casks. I want to go the other way. I'm just trying to justify these cider casks so I can actually bottle.
Yes. I was just thinking what we need to be is a little bit more creative and just call cider apple beer. And then,
that's brilliant. Yeah.
Then we're in.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, an apple beer cask, matured, finished in an apple beer cask. There you go.
Apple beer. That's it.
Yeah, I think we've solved it. I think we've solved it.
Right, that's
you've done it again. You've done it again. You've dropped in Glenelgin, Glenelgin a peated cask, Strathmill in a Tokai cask. We've now got Glenallachie in a stout cask. I mean, people must be slavering watching this tonight.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we've got any Glenallachie fans out there, we have. I've just seen.
I think there's maybe one or two.
Awesome. Well, this is going to give Ben.
That's what I'm drinking. That's what I'm drinking tonight.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah, this is my opportunity to give Ben a headache because it's usually him giving me a headache with all of these requests. His headache is how he's going to share this single cask UK exclusive we've got coming in just a couple of weeks. 13-year-old Glenallachie, initially filled into sherry butt, and it's been split for the last just under 3 years into first fill port, bottled at cask strength, which I think is still up there around 62.5. Just an absolute monster, just so deep and rich. And I mean, we all kind of have an idea of Glenallachie, a sherry Glenallachie, you know, that's Glenallachie. But with the, it's actually port cask that we source from guys called Carveston Mercia over in the Douro Valley. Those fruits, it's just so chocolatey, so fruity. It's a delight. So it's going to be Ben's headache to manage the allocations on that, which I'm already enjoying the thought of him sweating that out. So hopefully you guys get some of that in the coming weeks.
Ben will know the guys who like Glenallachie as well. Surely.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
We've got Jamie Price who's watching on LinkedIn. If you didn't know, you can now watch us on LinkedIn as well.
Oh wow, okay, we've got another string to our LinkedIn bow. Yeah, okay.
Jamie saying he's a big time Glenallachie fan as well, and Juliet, who's a good friend of ours as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those. It's a pretty good talking point with independent bottlers, with the likes of these what I call like names distilleries that have brands that are just skyrocketing all over the world. Because
do you try and not ride on the back of it, but do you find that there's an ideal time? So if you a couple of years ago when Glenallachie really started getting traction, did you think, because you released a Glenallachie at the start of the year, at your first quarter, I think, at Oloroso Cast. You think there's casts like that thinking, should we release this earlier to get that name? I'm just using Glenallachie because we're talking about it now, but
well, I mean, it applies to so many distilleries that their brands do rocket. But there's two schools of thought, obviously. I mean, there's the kind of make hay while the sun shines, but it's the replenishing of that stock which becomes an issue. I mean, we've got, I would say, fairly good stocks of Glenallachie for the Murray McDavid brand. Now, I'm always battling with Edward and Anya, who are very much part of the cask sales team, who at the moment, we all kind of work from a shared list, and it can get a little bit fierce when Anya and Edward have, you know, a customer coming in looking to buy a parcel of 100 casks, and they need some sparkle to make that parcel attractive. And of course, by making a parcel attractive, you can do a couple of things. You can introduce older whiskies that will add the sparkle, or you can use names, you know, like Glenallachie that make it more appealing. But there are only so many of these casks in our stock holdings, and you know, we've actually just this year really being disciplined to strategize to say, look, you know, we are seeing a lot of taps or wells drying up in terms of certain distilleries, you know, rocketing with their demands globally. Of course, naturally, they're going to want to keep the spirit to bottle under their own brands. Yeah. And we're almost kind of adopting that with ACO cask stock. You know, we're almost kind of realizing that actually with the rise of Murray McDavid in the way that it's going with the cask craft as well, we're actually having to turn the tap off to other brokers. So it's all kind of a trickle down effect. So we did release a Glenallachie in our core release. We do have another single cask coming for the UK, but it's likely to be a lot more staggered now. And that's just all a part of the strategizing of the stocks. You know, with this, it's all, you know, 2008, 2009 stock, very good condition in terms of liquid fill and strength. So, you know, that thing could mature for a long, long time. So from my point of view as head of Whisky Creations, the sales team would probably be screaming to bottle it all now. But in terms of like the Murray McDavid portfolio in 5 years' time, I don't want to look back on our portfolio and see, you know, 15, 12-year-old Glenallachies. You know, I want to see, you know, us staggering it to 15 to 20-year different cask maturations. Yeah. Because, you know, as a portfolio of whiskies, that is a far more interesting proposition to discover how it matures differently in different directions. So
you also don't want to be known as a brand that just releases. I mean, we're using Glenallachie as a name, but any distillery brand, because the wonderful thing about independent bottlers is that you're going to find something that's unusual, and that's what you're always looking for. You know, you talk about the Inch Gower. We spoke about that earlier on tonight. And a lot of people not even knowing what Inchgower Distillery is, and that's a wonderful discovery to make. So that takes in a different direction of discovery, and that's what you've always got with independent bottlers. And I guess there's two sides to the coin of success of a distillery. One is that you could ride on the back of it, but then a distillery getting big for its boots, having maybe not been there before, suddenly thinks, "Oh, wait a minute, we don't want these guys mucking about with their whiskey anymore." It's what they see. When you're not, you know, you've actually been promoting it for a longer time than maybe they have.
Yeah.
So it's you know, there's a funny wee game to play there. But I think it's if I had an independent bottling company and a distillery decided to shut me down, I would think, fine, we can go and do anything else. And I think that's the most wonderful thing about it.
Like Juliet's saying there, hold your ground, Dean. Don't listen to
Wise words. Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe Juliet would give you a cask every now and then. You
know, Juliet's got hundreds in our garage, so yeah, you'll just.
Oh dear. Yeah,
I had Graham Mackay as well. I'm not sure if Graham's still watching on YouTube. Obviously with the Ardnamurchan distillery. Have you guys made connections with guys like Ardnamurchan, Torraveg, Lochlee, all these new distilleries?
Yeah, I mean, Connor and I have exchanged over actually Instagram, funnily enough, but we just keep kind of missing each other at the moment. And I know Graham from various whiskey shows throughout the years. So it's always a joy to catch up with those guys. But we've actually not really spoken much, you know, business in terms of the direction of the brands and spirit supply. There's a few things happening with some kind of startup distilleries that are popping up around Scotland, but I'm I'm usually kind of loose-lipped, but I feel that I kind of have to stay a little bit kind of a little step back on this this one at the moment.
All right, we'll ask Ben.
Yeah, Ben. Oh my God, yeah, Ben. Good Lord.
Sorry, Ben, if you're watching. Sorry.
Yeah, no, Ben. He, yeah. Just give him a dram and you're good. You're good. But no, there's for me, we have, you know, I mean, I mentioned at the start, you know, within our warehousing, we've got 160 different spirit types, you know, around 120 odd different wood types. Spirits distilled this year dating back to 1964. So, you know, with those three combinations there, that's certainly enough for me to keep me going for now, in terms of that discovery of flavor and maintaining, managing, monitoring the maturation of these things. I mean, I've seen some other indies look at like Scandinavian single malts all over the world, which is interesting, undoubtedly. But there's so much on our doorstep, and so much opportunity for discovery when you combine those three factors: origin of the single malt Scotch whiskey, or be it a grain, be it a blend. Introduce the factor of additional maturation in secondary cask. We are actually starting to do some triple cask maturation as well, exploring that, because that's something that we've not really done previously. I mean, we've married cask types before, which we've had really lovely results with, but to kind of further our journey and kind of venture into the unknown for Murray McDavid, that's going to be our next step. So yeah, we're not ever going to kind of rest on our laurels and do what we know we can do well. We're always going to look to kind of create new and interesting products. And yeah, you know, we keep going back to it. It's the joys of the freedom of being an indie, which is cool.
And I think probably more than any other. I mean, all indies have do experimentation to a degree, but Murray McDavid are pushing the bounds of experimentation. So, the question I wanted to ask in terms of spirit or getting a hold of spirit, is it easier getting grain than it is malt?
There was one kind of spell like towards the end of COVID, so maybe you know, between 6 months and a year ago, well, we were finding it more tricky than usual. I think a lot of people in the industry were kind of, or suppliers I should say, were kind of like just taking a step back and watching what we'd see happen in the market. You know, I mean, we now have a good supply of grain whiskey from quite a few different producers, because we do have a project coming online. I'm hoping next year. We're having real issues with securing and completing on a new shape bottle for a new project. It's going to have a lovely like coating to the bottle, which you know, there's supply chain issues for these things left, right, and center at the moment. It's not the easiest time to be developing lots of new products in fancy decanters or fancy bottle shapes, which is why we've kept it almost kind of no frills, dare I say it, for the cask craft. But with this new product, which isn't actually going to be Murray McDavid, it's going to sit under the umbrella of ACO Spirits. It is going to be a large volume grain brand, which I'm dead excited about, because we are applying that same ethos of Murray McDavid, the art of maturation, into it. So I will have input. It's not just that we're buying bulk spirit and bottling it. It will have our, you know, our thumbprint onto that spirit, which as I mentioned at the beginning, doing projects on a much larger scale blows my mind as to the strategies of making sure we're hitting that consistent product year in, year out with 60,000 bottles each batch. So that's going to be our first step into that really next year with young grain. But no, I mean, to answer your question, I think we're now in a period where the supply of single grain isn't so much an issue. It's actually finding the bottle and finding a bottling hall that can do it in a nice, timely fashion without putting the label on upside down, or we've seen some real crazy things going on in bottling.
That comes from experience, does it?
Oh, honestly, I mean, luckily I don't have too much to do with the bottling operations. I just get sent the kind of quality control images from the bottling halls, just to make sure that the color of the liquid is as it should be. Of course, we get line samples sent to us to make sure that the spirit is doing what it should be. But yeah, with some new product developments, there's always a very scary moment where you've been working on this new look or new product for well, actually, I'll just go straight into it. With Murray McDavid, the 6 categories that we've been representing for the last 7 years, we are giving it a facelift. So we are rebranding Murray McDavid, which has been long overdue. I mean, it's, as I say, 7 years since we've given it the rebirth in those infamously bright, colourful tins, which I remember going to festivals back in 2015, and like whiskey packaging was, even just back then, wasn't really long ago, but whiskey packaging was a lot more kind of traditional, a lot more safe, lots of blacks, browns, golds, beige. So me rocking up to this whiskey show with like electric blue, like vibrant red, yellow tins, orange. It was a little bit out there, and I remember Mickey Plummer, you devil, if you're out there and you're not lost on the streets of Edinburgh. He was the guy that really gave me my first grilling about the packaging of Murray McDavid, and it still haunts me today. He's the devil.
The tin tops.
Sorry?
Just the tin tops, trying to get into the top.
Oh, yeah, there is a bit of an art to get into the tins. Yeah. Don't pull from one direction. You have to kind of caress around the top.
Okay.
That's
I like it.
It's almost like it's like a child safe lock.
Yes,
you can't just pull the bagger open. But we are actually moving away from the tins, which I'm probably saying too much now, because the official relaunch is going to be happening, I think, early next year. But you will see rebranded product out there this side before the end of the year is out. But moving away from tin, I mean, the cost of packaging is we've seen.
Before we move away from tin, we've got to talk about the colour. Where did the colour come from? Where did all these vibrant colours come from at the beginning? Was that back to, again, Mark Rainier with his outlandish ideas? Was that where that came from, or was it after him?
It was fed through the inspiration of that kind of eccentricity of challenging the norms. I mean, back when Mark had the brand at Bruichladdich, we would have just had the Mission Gold and what was known as the core in the silver tin. There was one point in time where they did some other styles of packaging, like the Mission Gold was in a kind of wooden box. There were some bottlings in a orange carton as well. They had quite a few different looks. They had the Renegade rum brand as well. Some people might recall that. Which was really interesting. I'm hoping to revive some of that energy into the brands. Mark still has the name, of course, which he's applied to his new
Still
rum.
do, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, which is going to be very, very interesting when we see more of that
But
overall.
there's still a need for that, and I guess Murray McDavid's kind of continuing that kind of legacy. I mean, that old rock and roll with Brew Laddie. You know, I guess there's a danger if we go back down the kind of boring old fuddy-duddy kind of line, isn't there? I mean, Kat Housley, who works with us in the shop, fantastic. I need to work on my caressing technique. There's something about that. If you've got a bottle, you've got to learn how to take. I mean, there's just something from a whiskey drinker's point of view. I mean, let's forget the collectors, the flippers, and all these guys. We're all whiskey drinkers, and we want that to be an experience that we can all kind of talk about. And actually, sitting down with a bunch of guys or girls in the pub and talking about, I know how to get into Murray McDavid because I've got the perfect caressing technique. I mean, that's going to go down there as a life skill.
Yeah, maybe we should do a kind of a loyalty scheme or a competition over Speyside. Like, how quickly can you get into a tin?
I dropped out for like 30 seconds. I have no idea what went on.
Don't worry, mate. Don't worry, mate. It's okay. I'll tell you about it tomorrow.
Completely different rabbit hole.
Yeah.
We're just talking about the difficulty of getting into the tin sometime.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So apparently there is a caressing technique that actually works quite well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Be gentle. Firm but gentle.
That's it, yeah. Gentle, slowly but surely, around the top. You can't just, go in like a brute and just rip the thing open.
Such is life. You've got to take your time and build it up.
Not sure if we should do this live. But...
Oh, come on. This is maybe not for... What time is it? Oh, we're okay. It's after the watershed. So
there we go. A demonstration. That took a second. But there's no bottlings. I'm not sure if that...
No, but no. I mean, I was saying to Russell, we are moving away from the tins for a few reasons. Yeah, yeah. It's a big step in a new era for Murray McDavid. We've got a new bottle shape coming, a new look. The colours will remain. We're not moving away from the big bold colours, but the supply chain for our dry goods over the past year or two, cost of goods have just gone a little bit mental. Whereas historically, that tin that was just walloped through the air, that would have been we would have been paying around 89p for one of those tins, ordering in batches of 60,000. But the current quotes at I guess it would have been kind of March time, they were closer to £1.70 a tin, which is kind of nearly double the cost. And of course, that extra 90p or whatever it might be, as that cost trickles down to the shelf price, you could be looking at an extra £3 or £4 just because of that little price increment there. So that was part of the inspiration to move away from the tins. But that's all I'm going to say on the rebrand, because I know our marketing team are going to be screaming about sharing too many secrets. But we will be revealing more. I'm back up to Coleburn next Friday, where I'll be at Speyside Distilleries launching the cask craft. We'll have some UK exclusives. We've still got a few cases of the absolute belter, the 13-year-old Glenbergie, initial maturation in Oloroso sherry butts, finished in Sauterne, juicy dram.
Glenbergie, Oloroso, Sauterne. I mean, just Glenallachie and
Yeah, it's God, that was a real surprising dram. That's kind of our version of the serendipity, because it was a whiskey made out of complete accident, if I'm honest. Because as I say, most of the cask stocks that we purchase tend to be supplied in refill casks. Refill hogsheads is how they're described when we're purchasing. And all of our cask whiskey stock is still currently managed in the sophisticated, the artistic documents provided by Microsoft Excel. So there's a lot of data entry that goes into these sheets, and it is still managed by our stock team. Much better than it used to be.
We've seen them in action. I mean, they sit in front of spreadsheets and just beaver away.
Yeah, it's quite amazing, because I mean, you think every cask movement, of course, it needs to be tracked, whether that's a cask coming in from a distillery, whether that is a spirit being re-racked from cask A to cask B, whether it's a blend job, whether it's a dispatch to bottling. Those guys are crazy busy. So they don't get enough time in the limelight, because they are wizards. They are wizards with the things that they do.
Package is an interesting subject, and again, it was one of the questions I had on my questionnaire that you were kind to answer, and again, every other independent bottler said it's a really important thing, because I guess as an indie, you're looking to kind of maybe stand, as anybody is, you're looking to stand out on the shelf. But ultimately, and I'll put this out to the guys that are watching, as a whiskey drinker, as long as the spirit's good in the bottle, you're not really caring what the package. I mean, you just hold up a bottle that says it's from Glenbergie, it's in sherry, it tastes great. That's all we're kind of looking for. But yet, it's such an important.
I think it's a massively important thing from a retailer and pub to a certain extent as well, but more often in a retailer, whether it's online or people walking in. A lot of our customers, as you know, Russell, are buying for somebody else. So we're not in that strap region, so it's not people coming buying for themselves to take home for themselves. It's people who are coming and buying, and when there is an element that they need that presentation, and quite often that's the difference between a bottle without a tube and a bottle in a box, whatever. I think it is important to look good, but I think that looks good. I
love it. I think it's great. Callum Renton's made a very good point. Callum's saying that all packaging of every bottle we've ever drunk is in the bin or the recycling. And that is exactly it. But yet it still remains a massive thing. And marketing companies that are massive, they're huge, make lots of money. But I know it is such an important thing, because people buy with their eyes.
And how we took that direction into these colors is we wanted to, when introducing the blue, the red, the yellow, and the orange, we wanted to reflect the creativity of whiskey making that Mark would have put into the Murray McDavid brand back in the day. So that's why we went with these bright colors, to reflect that kind of point of difference, that kind of young, energetic style of whiskey maturation, which to some, to a lot of people, isn't the most traditional way of maturing whiskey. Very different from long-term maturation in a classic sherry cask. If I mention a tin Innick in a Pinot de Charonne cask, it's not the most traditional thing, but that is what is reflected, hopefully, within our packaging. And we've always tried to be as transparent as possible. So, of course, we tell you the original kind of cask, whether it's refill bourbon, refill sherry hogshead, sometimes sherry butts. We'll tell you the finishing cask, obviously. On the back label, we'll tell you the story of how long it's been in that finishing cask. also, you know, the origins of these casks as well. You know, we do pride ourselves, as I say, collaborating with these, you know, esteemed producers, expert producers, which, you know, we treat it as a collaboration. You know, as I said before, you know, we celebrate the provenance of our spirit as much as we celebrate the provenance of our cask, because, you know, the investment in these casks is really quite great and is reflected in the quality of the whiskey, the resulting whiskey. So yeah, and as you know, going back those years into the whiskey bar, looking at the shelves, how can you make it easy for consumers? I mean, just tell them the story, you know, give them everything, the points of interest on the bottle. I mean, as I say, we've kind of pegged it back into a more simplistic approach with the cask craft, but, you know, important to get peated in there. I mean, Glenelgan is there, minimal, but as I say, for this series, the cask craft is the king. You know, it's all about the cask. But, you know, even breaking down, and it's become very on trend over the past couple of years to have those big flavor indicators, you know, citrus and smoke and citrus. So, yeah, it's all about the communication to the consumer and hopefully creating something interesting to look at, incentivizing you to pick up a bottle to take home, which will hopefully result in the person enjoying a dram.
Callum's reading my thoughts, but before we get there, I was going to come back to, you've said so many times tonight, and I'm doing really well because I've got no pen either, so I'm not able to take notes to remember the questions I keep thinking about as we go along. So
You had
no, there's the technology side. I'm happy to try and remember my. But my first observation is that what I think, again, what you guys are doing is it's akin to a restaurant where you're getting some good fresh produce. So you're getting these casks of whiskey that are, you know, they're unfinished, and you're then making a wonderful meal. And that was meal is available. Am I still there? Yeah.
Got you, Russell. Got you.
Yeah. So you got that kind of analogy. So I was doing so well for a long time. I had about an hour of uninterrupted internet. But there's that whole thing about it's almost like being a chef in a restaurant where you've got to work with ingredients you've got, and they go out, and then the next night or the next cask, there's another kind of recipe comes out, and that's a scary thing, but a nice thing, because you're continually producing something different. I think it would be horrible to a distillery that does age statements, but it's a bit like working at McDonald's, I guess, if you're doing 10-year-old, 12-year-old consistently. You know, it's just flipping burgers. Guys aren't doing that. You're doing bespoke meals every single night. So there's that kind of thing. But also, that was just an observation. And the question I was going to say is finishing, and what's your interpretation of finishing? Because it's like 3 years, not a second maturation, you know. But
yeah, I mean, I've maybe I need to do some more reading, but I've never really seen it defined by.
I don't think it is defined.
No. And I don't really think we definitely have casks that have been in secondary casks for extended periods. Certainly a lot of our what I call our legacy casks from Murray McDavid. I mean, you know, one of the jewels in the crown of that parcel would be the 1978 Boonhaven, which was initially in refill sherry. It's now in a port pipe, and it's been in that cask. Well, I mean, we brought it over to Speyside 2013, I think. So it's been in that port pipe for over 10 years. So finish, secondary maturation, you know, I guess I mean, maybe you could, does it depend on the age of the whiskey as well? I mean, a finish, you can, I guess, justify talking about 3 to 4 years, but if that whiskey is 7 years old, then is that a secondary maturation, you know?
Graham Cool from Glen Murray, when he was at Glen Murray before he went over to Ireland, And he kind of described anything that's less than the initial maturation could be classed as a finish. And that was his interpretation. That's not written down anywhere, I think, but that's what he said.
Yeah,
he regarded that. Otherwise, but there's no definition of something. You say you've got some whiskies that are really old, that maybe even the second cask for longer than the first cask, but is that a finish?
You can have a 19-year-old whiskey, 10 years in bourbon, and finished for 9 years in sherry.
Yeah, but it would be the case where you might go from bourbon to bourbon. You might realize after 10 years that this cask isn't giving anything. Let's get it into another bourbon cask, continue that development. But you're not putting in a finish to change direction. You just want to rejuvenate almost. So,
Yeah, and actually by SWA definition, you could still call that a single cask whiskey.
Yeah.
You go from bourbon to bourbon, or
yeah. Even if you re-rack from bourbon to bourbon, technically, that still abides by the.
It's the same.
Because you're not changing the trajectory of the spirit style, by taking it from bourbon to sherry or vice versa. So if, let's say if you had a Glentocher's 12-year-old in first fill Oloroso sherry hogshead, a stave blows out, then you need to get that spirit into another cask. Now, if you can, I guess the most logical would be to put that spirit, and this is what we would probably tend to do today, if I'm honest, is the guys at Coleburn would disgorge that cask into a drum, pop it over to Speyside cooperage to get it repaired, and then the whiskey would go back in. But I know of some of our stocks that there's been consolidations historically, certainly with some old grain, which have been in really battered refill bourbon barrels. But we've had that consolidation of stock. Sorry, not the consolidation, but transferring a cask of, I think it was North British 1988 point in case, in refill bourbon barrels, which needed repair, total horrible condition, but they were refilled into, again, bourbon barrels. So even though it's transferred through two different casks, it still can journey as a single cask whiskey. It just needs to be that same provenance of cask type.
Can I just say thank you to Callum for bringing this very delicate and detailed discussion up as we head into a third hour of chat. It's like, let's start again. Let's
get the controversial topics out now. Because the next one, the next subject you brought is actually, you brought up the Glentochers. Glentocher splits the crowd as well, and I'm very much in the for Glentochers crowd. And one of your fellow indie bottlers, the Lady of the Glen guys, Gregor and Paul, who you'll know, are very split. Gregor hates Glentochers and Paul loves it. And I'm very much with Paul. I love Glentochers. I think it's fantastic.
I'm with Gregor. I've only found Glentochers I like. And that was a Chivas, one of the wee 50cl Chivas single cask bottlings.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Well, we're going to have to get you guys to Coleburn because
yeah, we come back anytime. Absolutely.
We have some really interesting parcels of Glentochers, and it's probably one of my favorite stories in terms of it's the parcel of stock 1996 Glentochers. Back in 2017, it was one of my first big jobs of assessing the spirit of an older whiskey for for ACO. I think there are 144 casks of this 1996 Glentochers. So on paper, I was rubbing my hands. Back in 2017, what would that have been? 19-year-old single malt. So I was like, oh, this is going to be great. looking at the different cask influences that the refill would have on this spirit of something so old I'd just not done before. But it was the first time that I really, really understood the term knackered casks. Because, you know, although it's 19 years old, you know, this lovely Speyside single malt, it may well have been 4 years old. Because there was just absolutely stripped, zero color. And, you know, there were, of course, some complexities going on there, but it was just still such a coarse style of spirit, you know, really peppery, really prickly on the palate. And yeah, that was my big first awakening that, Christ, you know, when you hear people talking about, you know, ages and everything, and you hear people saying, you know, older single malts are the better. I wish, well, we will have a library sample of that somewhere. But to show people that actually, you know, age is in some cases, it's just not an indicator of quality.
Yeah.
I don't know what fill these casks would have been. We don't get given that information when buying stocks. Generally, we don't get that information. But, you know, we still have, I think we still got about, I think it's still about 50 of those 1996 parcels, which we've bottled some. I think we've got some going through now, which has been finished in Madeira. We've got PX. We've got some ports. But that parcel to me is like a real eye-opener into actually what can happen with quality wood, because I've kind of followed that old stock from, not since its inception, of course, but from when we've received it in the refill to see the full transformation of, you know, a mature single malt of 19 years of age, which is now, you know, 26 years of age. And I've seen the journey, which, you know, of course, I've seen that a lot with younger single malts with the benchmark. But we don't have the flexibility of maturing older stocks in such a free way, if that makes sense. Yeah, because of that parcel was so large, we had, you know, a bit more freedom and flexibility into how we wanted to parcel it off into different cask types. So that parcel there is probably one of the most important parcels in my kind of whiskey understanding of how you can mature and balance the delicacies within a spirit with, you know, kind of in some cases really rich, cumbersome styles of finishing cask like PX. So yeah, that's quite a journey of maturation, which I think would hopefully convert any person who didn't enjoy a Glentockers. Such a huge difference in style between, you know, we've got a lot of 2008, 2009 Glentockers as well, which, you know, has been in finishing cask for 3-4 years now. And complete. We get those kind of lovely, creamy, rich, chocolatey notes, the fruit that runs through there. But just the delivery of the flavor, the complexity between this 96 stock and the 2008, you know, it's a different beast. But, you know, I'm preaching to the converted here. But, you know, that's why these older single malts with that more, you know, that longer complexity, that's why they command the money that they do today.
Yeah.
But it's a very different drinking style, and that's why I enjoy the diversity of our portfolio. You know, you can have those, you know, those more luxury, complex drinking styles with the older whiskies, but, you know, the 10 to 12 year malts that have had that rigorous maturation, you know, really packing the flavor.
There's a time and a place for that kind of elegant, smooth, wonderful.
Yeah.
There's a term in this. I haven't cycled for years, but cycling is my kind of sport. And when you're going really well, there's a term called, you're kind of dealing with Lady Volupty, this wonderful, elegant lady, smooth tarmac. There's wind at your back, everything's feeling nice, your bike's going well, and that's going kind of. So that's your kind of elegant, smooth, silky kind of whiskey. The man with the hammer, he's actually Lady Volupty's husband, and if you spend too much time with Lady Volupty, he comes around and kind of smacks you. So that's like Ben Nevis, Craig Ellicky, and maybe a bit of Glen Talkers, that kind of punchy, that kind of boxing. And sometimes you're ready for a wee fight with some of them. Sometimes you do. That's what you want. You want that kind of chewy, kind of testy, kind of punchy kind of spirit. Other times you can't. There's times I've poured a Ben Nevis and I thought, well, I'm not up for this fight at all. I need something much easier. But there's other times you're like, yeah, I'm ready for this. This is what I want. And that's the wonderful thing about whiskey.
I like when you're outside to pick up your computer after throwing it out the window. You're like,
oh, yeah, that's going to get soaked in Ben Nevis later on. I'm just going to pour a bottle over the top of it. Like.
But yeah, and to your point there, Russell, that's why I don't ever really bore and tire of working with single malts from around Scotland. That's why we've never been tempted to look around the world, because there's the sheer diversity. As I keep going back to those 3 points: the origin of the single malt, the cask influence, and the age. There's just an incredible amount of options of discovery there, which will keep us busy for a lifetime. So, yeah, happy drumming to that.
Have you got an absolute? I mean, it's a stupid question, and people ask me this all the time, and I don't. So I'll ask: have you got an absolute favorite distillery, as opposed to, is there a distillery that really piques your interest all the time?
Gosh, I mean,
we have Russell and I have started asking this question a few times, and it's if money was no object and you could buy any distillery.
Buy a distillery? Oh wow, crikey!
What distillery would it be?
I mean, I've got a real soft spot for Arran, because that was actually the first distillery that I ever visited, back in when would that have been? So that would have been 2013 or 14, I think. I just took my backpack, my tent, my hiking boots, got the train up to Glasgow from Cheltenham, and just kind of hitchhiked my way over to Islay. But I'll never forget. I've kind of learned a little bit more about planning visits and trips, because I camped. It's Brodick, isn't it? You get the ferry into, and just around the corner, that's where I pitched my tent up, overlooking the sea there, which it was amazing, incredible. And the morning after, I started to I kind of, like, on the map, I was either going to walk around the coast or I was going to go up Goatfell and over around the other way. And I was much younger and fitter at the time, so I was like, right, I'm going to stick my backpack on. I'm going to go over this hill, what I had envisaged at the time, and woke up really quite early, and like mist had, the cloud level, the mist was really quite low, so I didn't have a clear view at what Goatfell was actually going to be like. So had my big old rucksack on. You see those travelers going around like Cambodia or Thailand, great big things, and started my walk up the hill, and start seeing some people kind of walk back down, kind of they started off kind of smiling, these people passing me as I was going up. Like 45 minutes up, I was like, okay, I can't see the top. I can't see, but I could see people's faces getting more and more concerned the closer I was getting to the top, because they clearly knew that I had no idea what I was doing, just hiking up this bloody thing with a great big rucksack. But I made it over to the other side, and I actually got a lift to because by the time I came down the other side, it was kind of getting dark. So I got a lift up to the campsite. I think it's just kind of opposite the distillery, and camped there. Went to the distillery the next day, and just kind of really fell in love with. They had their little bottle your own thing there, and that was my first distillery introduction. So that would be, I think, the distillery that I would buy. Also because it's such beautiful settings. It's not overcrowded by any means.
Whiskey's not bad either, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. I really rate it. I wish we could get some.
Maybe it wasn't overcrowded in 2013. I went to Balblair in 2019, and I just did a little bit of research to see how many people typically visited Balblair, and it was typically about 4,000 people a year. But Arran had 150,000.
Yeah, wow.
So it's maybe a little bit busier now, but so you should have bought it.
Yeah. Go back now. There's a chairlift to the top of that mountain.
Yeah, God, no. Well, I need to go back. I need to go back and visit the south of the island. Go back to that. Because that's obviously up and running, doing good things, and hopefully I can charm them a little bit to just a cask or two here or there. That'd be nice to put under Murray McDavid.
Is there any distilleries that you have you ever bought the Arran? Is
that original? Actually, have they? They may have back in the Brookladdy days of Murray McDavid, but we've not since 2015. No, it's one of those makes that we just don't see too much of when being offered.
Yeah, there's no use at all, is it?
No, and actually, it was one of those. I think that might have actually been my first ever single cask bottling. It was back when I was managing the bar. I remember they released a series of I think it was 95 vintage, 96 single cask sherries at cask strength. They were just like belters of a dram, in black kind of fold out boxes. They were really cool. Really cool. So yeah, that's kind of why I fell in love with Arran. It's that again, kind of getting out there, discovering the west coast of Scotland, and I actually nearly died on that trip as well. Coming over. What I didn't mention is
drop that in there.
Yeah, no, it was actually on the descent on the other side where I should have gone left. I should have followed the track, but instead I took the scenic route. And
the scenic route.
It was one of those. It was one of those cases where if I didn't keep going in this direction, I don't think I would have had enough time to come back and go the sensible route. So I had to persist with this route, but. And I didn't go with a mobile phone. My mum still gives me an earful about it today. I went completely off the grid, which was wonderful. But had this next chapter gone a very different direction, we wouldn't be having the conversation today, because this hike, beautiful hike, was immediately interrupted by a cliff. So, I had to either make the decision: do I go back that way, and risk going down this track that I don't know in darkness, or I could see the road from this cliff top. Could I make it down this cliff onto the road before nightfall? So I went down the cliff with my big old backpack, going back down backwards. And my left hand slipped, and the weight of my backpack just kind of spun me round, and I must have fell. I mean, it felt like 100 feet I fell, but I probably fell like 4 feet. But yeah, it was just a point where I luckily, like, the weight of the bag was
kind of swing back onto the clip face.
It swung me round, and then I dropped, and like my back spun, so I kind of fell onto my back. But I just remember like clawing onto everything, and like I almost kind of recall it that my toes were like fingers, like just grabbing on just for dear life. And I remember just being in that position for about 5 minutes, like, am I dead? Am I dead? Is this it? Is this it? It was quite a view, so I mean, maybe it wouldn't have been so terrible, but
I'm dying. That's a great view.
Yeah, no, that was the one time where I like just had that kind of life flashing moment.
Holy shit.
Yeah, my first introduction to exploring Scotland, and I'm actually planning to cycle the North Coast 500 next year. So I'm going to be steering clear of any cliff edges, and making sure that
you're not familiar with Italian camper vans, then surely, and that's that's almost as dangerous as bloody cliff.
Yeah, I've heard many things. So yeah, I think I'm going to try and do that after the Spirit of Speyside Festival next year. So yeah, first couple of weeks of May, we'll be doing that.
Callum's come back in here saying, clinging on for dear life. Sounds like trying Avengerag. It's a bit harsh, I think, Callum.
I've heard it's a wee bit rough and ready there, to be fair, but yeah. So it's no wonder you you needed an Aaron dram. I mean, Chris, that was a resuscitation dram, but wasn't it?
You would have really gutted if that 5 minutes holding on was the 5 minutes that you needed to get down to your campsite before nightfall.
Well, yeah. No, luckily,
we're closed. Sorry.
Luckily, a passerby got me on the road, because it was still, I think, another couple of miles to the campsite, and like to the point of getting to the bottom of this cliff and to the road. That took a while. It was one of those situations where at the top it looked just like a kind of flat grass field, but actually when you got down there, it was just like bushes, thick bush, like all around. So again, I was just kind of like trying to climb over this thick bush, absolutely knackered, with a huge bag on my back, worrying about the light. And it sounds super stressful, but I had a great time.
Yes. Looking back at it, you think it's amazing, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, they say there's no such thing as adventure without danger. So yeah.
Yeah, that's it. You know, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. That element of risk.
And you don't get experience without nearly dying. So therefore,
yeah.
I can see why you've got an affinity to the Aaron Bram, though. You know, the one that almost took your life is the one.
Yeah.
So, yeah. There you go. You need to get down to Lag and try and convince them to.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because I mean the supply of peated spirit, be it from Isla, is not super challenging, but it's getting slightly more difficult. Certainly with brands that we have under our ACO Spirits umbrella. We've got a volume product called Smoky Scott Isla Single Malt, which has been selling very, very well globally, but it would be nice to turn that into a bit more of a brand, do some brand extensions, different cask finishes onto that as well, different origins of peated malt, which we have almost. I think we're just getting over the crossing the T's and the dotting the I's on the sales orders for those. So that'll be interesting developments for later next year, early 2024.
Did you say that was Isla blended malt?
No, so well, within that there will be Isla single malt, but also some Speyside peated malt as well is going to be in there. I haven't been given too much information about this yet. I'm waiting to receive some spirit samples in the next couple of weeks, so that we can then, properly strategize wood types, and if I want to reserve any for Murray McDavid and things like that. So yeah, we'll see. It's one of those things that, peat. Of course, everyone is bottling the fabulous Kealila, but to keep that diversity, we always look for other options of different peated styles, which we have that output in the Safe Haven, in the mystery malt. And actually, the past, I would say, 2 years, we've been a lot more active in finishing non-peated malt in peated casks, hence the Caskcraft peated finish there. So yeah, that's that.
You mentioned when you spoke about the Glenelgan peat casks. Are you buying these peated casks from the distilleries, or these casks that you've used that you're then refilling?
So it's all recycling, in-house recycling. So when we are buying Isla single malt, or whether it's the Pilash, the Safe Haven, the Lechik, they will come to us in refill hogsheads, as I mentioned, and we will re-rack. So of course, when you're re-racking cask A to cask B, you're always left with an empty cask.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are now putting the original peated casks to work, whereas historically, 2017 previous, we would have sold these casks back to the providers of the stock, or even selling them to Speyside cooperage. But actually, we've kind of realized that we should be utilizing them a lot more, developing our story in the art of maturation by using that wonderful peat influence that is still lodged deep within the oak of these casks. So we've got the Caskcraft. You'll see some Murray McDavid bottlings as well, where we've got some single grains which have been finished in peated casks as well. That's pretty cool. That's going to come next year. So yeah, we're having a lot of fun, not just with the peated cask, but second fill bourbon, port, Madeira, and that will all feed into Caskcraft. I mean, if we were 100% first fill, of course, the cost of those casks will affect the cost, the retail cost of the Caskcraft. So it's all about finding that magic balance between first fill, second fill, and refill casks with the Caskcraft.
God, anything between 30 and 40 quid.
Yeah, no, cheaper. Yeah, 30 35.
We're all going to be pretty happy with that,
Yeah, I really hope so. I really hope so, because yeah, we've done a lot of good work on these, and we've already lined up the next batches. So yeah, I think it offers that sweet spot of it's that bang for your buck kind of whiskey, that everyday sipper, and is doing what is promised on the labels, whether it is the Madeira finish, the Masala finish. We've got the port finish there as well. You're very definitely getting those influences in the dram there.
I like that idea that the distillery itself is almost secondary to the flavour that you're wanting to get.
Yeah.
So you won't get these people to, I've never heard of that distillery, or it's a distillery I don't like kind of thing. It's more about the flavour, and hopefully, And has that been a secondary kind of part of the label of the experience, people might think, oh well, actually, that Buna Have is not bad, or whatever it is. I've never liked one before. Like me and Glen Talkers, it's maybe something that.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to sneak a Glen Talkers in there, aren't I?
Yes, you are. Yeah. We all know Mike's wrong anyway, so that's fine.
Oh dear.
It's going to be that perfect bottle to take to share. It's going to be that kind of bottle that you're a session dram. You're going to just drink with your mates over a night, as opposed to maybe an expensive sipper that you'll have maybe on your own.
Exactly. Yeah. And I really hope these do serve as a good kind of stepping stone into the world of discovery of single malt whiskies.
I think it's going to do things. I think you're right about the stepping stone. But I think it's also going to give us guys who maybe are struggling to be able to afford the stuff we really, really want, but still want a really good dram, to be able to buy the stuff that we know is still really good. To be able to kind of keep buying what we know is good, without busting the bank for 200 quid bottles that we can't afford anymore. So yeah, I think it's important. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Well, listen, we've reached 2.5 hours, and I think we're probably in record territory here. We're in Ian McAllister from Glen Scotia, Ian Verteeth, Graham Mackay and Connell Mackenzie territory here. So you're up in the leaderboard, Dean.
No, that's great. I mean,
Top Gear, you'd be up there on the.
Yeah, no, I mean, as I say, there really is so much depth to what we're doing, with the art of maturation. As those 3 points again.
We could talk about just wood. We could talk about wood. I mean, don't be dirty, guys. We could talk about wood forever. Just the whole different varieties of oak. We could do that forever, and then you go into all the other subjects, and that's the wonderful thing about whiskey. I was on a tour with a couple yesterday from San Diego, and every single conversation just changed, from barley to yeast to maturation to wood and it just the whole day just kept on changing. And I kept on saying to them, that's the wonderful thing about whiskey. From our point of view, it's not just a drink in a glass. There's guys driving delivery lorries with casks, and there's guys driving trucks of grain. There's farmers in the field combining just now. There's other farmers ploughing. The whole business is massive, and you could talk forever about each single one. So when you think about all of that, the conversation never stops.
Yeah,
and that's the most wonderful thing about it.
Yeah, and I always have to kind of pull myself back from getting too immersed into what we do, because the realities is that Murray McDavid is the teeniest tiny drop in this, landscape of Scotch whiskey.
It's another part that you can then expand and make. Every single bit pops out into bigger sections, and Murray McDavid is not a small part. It's a part that then pops out to another bit. Oh, stop it, Kat! I'm allowed to mention. I didn't say tractors. I said combines.
That'll be the next the tour guide question. It won't be where does your barley come from. It'll be like, was it a Massey Ferguson or a John Deere that harvested?
Yeah. I mean, it is the elevation of new products and new projects for independent bottlers, which always piques my imagination. I mean, I really want us to explore a blended malt series. Yeah. I've actually started trialing some combinations in smaller scales, but as I mentioned earlier, there's a real balance of making sure that the sales team are happy, the finance team are happy. How can you go over and above your targets? Cask Craft is part of that this year. These will be small batches, so we're not looking for consistency in terms of hitting exact same flavor profile with that Madeira finish, but it will, as I say, occupy the same area on the flavor map. But I want us to challenge ourselves to create a larger scale series of blended malts that will hit that consistency. And we are actually, just this week, we've been looking at upping the scale of our vats over at Brackler, and just upping our possibilities of creating these larger volume products completely in-house, so that we can manage the process from start to finish, which hopefully will give the team a little bit more confidence in producing that consistent, whether it's a 10-year-old blended malt year in, year out. Because we have the stocks. I think we can hit that flavor profile with using interesting cask techniques applied to it that will make it uniquely Murray McDavid. That for me is the big project next year. But I know some people and ah about blended malts. The realities are that, okay, yes, single malt, glitz and glam with single malt. It is very en vogue. It's what people want. But as an independent bottler, if we're looking to produce, let's say, 200,000 bottles a year, then our stocks don't go in that direction. We don't have the Mannockmore, let's use that one. Mannockmore, we don't have the consistencies of stock year in, year out to continuously put out a 10-year-old Mannockmore matured in the way that we would like. So the realities are, it would be nice to do a consistent Mannockmore on large scale, but the realities of spirit supply, it's just not there. So the way that I see it is a blended malt would be the way that we could do it, by not draining our stocks in any one given direction. Not all 250 casks would have to come from Mannockmore. You could split those into 10 parcels of 25 casks from different distilleries, which we can do. So that's my whiskey rant of the evening. That's what I want to do next year is create this consistent product, because that's one thing that we don't have in our arsenal at the moment is a consistent product. And as I say, with the growth of the brand, looking for that diversity of whiskey offerings, I know that we do have some customers that would like that 40 quid bottle, which is the same year in, year out, with the art of maturation story applied.
In order to do that, you need to have control of a lot of different things, which the bigger guys do have. Your Pernod Ricards or Diageos, multitude of distilleries and all that kind of stuff. So it's harder for the smaller guys to
it's difficult, but that's why I'm opting for a blended malt, because I know that we've got
hit the nail there, Dee, in a couple of ways. The amount of people who buy or who say, I only drink single malt or I only drink single cask. How many of these are single cask guys say, I wish I could get that all the time? And it's like, well, you can by drinking a blended malt or a single malt. From that, people say, I only drink single malt. It's like you only get that consistency by blending casks together, by marrying casks. I try and use marrying casks when I'm talking about single malts and blending. Just differentiate between blending but you don't get that consistency from a single cask. You don't get that consistency without putting casks together, without blending. And for these guys to then say they don't drink blends, it's like, well,
yeah.
But you buy off the shelf in the supermarket with Highland Park, Macallan, Glenlivet, Glenmorangie, Glenfiddich, whatever it is, it's ultimately a blend of casks.
Yeah,
without a doubt, yeah.
But these guys drink single casks will say, and I'm one of them. Oh, I wish I had more. I've just finished that. I can't get any more. your Speyside Distillery for one, our own Glenallachie, and I'm sure the Arthroscope will fall into that when it's gone. It's like, oh, I wish I could have more of that. And if you really love a dram, you want more of it.
That is it. That's the beauty and the curse of single cask bottlings. And I already know this Caerlila, I'll keep going back to it, but the Caerlila and Tokai, that I already know is going to be one that, I will be keeping, a case stashed for those rainy days. I mean, we do have 10 of those casks, so it's not in complete short supply, but, it is going to be a case of when it's gone, it's gone. Yes, we can try and replicate that style, but as you know, you can have two casks in the same wood type sitting next to each other in the dunnage, but yet differences, they can be huge. So
at the point that guys like Springbank are now producing Campbell Loch to get a consistent product because they can't keep up with their own single malt. They've taken out. There's a single malt distillery and now taking out a blend to keep up with their own demand. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, that's it. It is a numbers game, and there's many large producers who create blends that nobody's ever heard of, but they're actually selling millions of bottles a year of this blend. That's where the money happens. But of course, the prestige comes with that storytelling of the single malt, which is very interesting. Will we see a shift in that? We have seen a lot of investment into companies that are producing. I mean, Compass Box is a great example of that company really taking the blended malt category by the horns and doing some wonderful things. The Langs with their blended malt series, really building volume, building brands within those brands, which is really great. We don't yet kind of have that with Murray McDavid, and not that I'm looking to replicate that. I mean, we've had a few people give their thoughts on what our blended malt series should be. And, initial ideas that were thrown to me, we should do regional style blended malts. And it's like, what, like everybody else? That is just what, if any other whiskey company is doing a blended malt series, they're going to look at regional styles, which, okay, I get it. But is the whiskey environment, is the whiskey landscape needing another blended malt series that tells you about what a Speyside whiskey should be? Probably not. So, I would keep it to our roots. We're known for the art of maturation. I would kind of move it away where we're going for the straightforwards, the one cask type influence here with the port and Madeira. I think that suits well with the single malts here. But with the story of blending, I think we should be looking at different spirit styles and different cask styles coming together.
I think certainly when we talk about regions, we talk about Islay being peaty, Speyside being floral, Lowland being grassy. That, to me now, it's almost cake. It's not. We get non-peated Islas, we get very heavily peated Speysides and everything in between. So the next journey is cask maturation. It doesn't matter if it's Speyside or it's Campbelltown or it's Islay or it's Lowland. It's the cask become more and more. So yeah, I think you're hitting a nail on the head there when you going down that route rather than, as you say, another classic Speyside or classic Islay or classic Highland. It's what the cask delivers is much, much more important now, and people kind of recognise that. We're finding in the shop more and more people are now saying Helix. So, like I said, a lot of people are buying presents for somebody from us, and it's he likes a sherry cask or he likes a single malt. It's not. It's less and less. He likes or she likes Speyside and Isla. It's more and more flavor. They don't like peaty or they love peaty. They like sherry cask. They like this and that. There's a little more flavor and regional.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, and yeah, I think that would be. I mean, we haven't even like conceptualized it with the design team, but I've kind of preempted the project. I've already got small batches of blends at Brackler in different cask types. So that will be the origins. I mean, I do have a kind of exit plan if this project doesn't come online, but I'm going to be badgering the team early next year to get it over the line. That stock will just be split up into like Murray McDavid vattings and things like that. But hopefully next year we'll launch a range of consistent blended malts. That's my goal. It's too early to be looking for New Year's resolutions, isn't it?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, but I
Christmas next.
No, I've been talking about Christmas since May, so I'm kind of exhausted. I'm ready for next year.
Talking about Christmas, I do believe that my Santa wish was ordered today, and talking about the history and all these kind of things. So the new Royal Mel Whisky, the book that's been launched, that has had people like Charlie MacLean and all the big whiskey writers absolutely agog. The James Eady book that, yeah. So I mean,
looks amazing. Amazing. Yeah. And I do have a bit of a collection of books at home, and I was so close. To, because this I think it launched on Tuesday, didn't it?
Yeah.
And I was actually down in Livingston at the office at the time, Monday and Tuesday this week, doing stock meetings. I was so close just to, I've just got to nip out for for a little bit.
It's such an expensive book. I can almost sense that anyone who's got one should put on a little get together of people in their local vicinity, and we should sit down with whiskey and just collectively read it, because it's one of these groundbreaking pieces of literature.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what piqued my interest is it's such a concise period of time, isn't it? I think is it 1922 to 29?
Yeah, just 7 years of 7 years of condensed facts, which is going to lead to all sorts of kind of changing of what we thought was before as well, which it's what I mean. I was kind of used to that. With my old job, when I was doing the psychiatric nursing, I remember doing a course on a thing called psychosocial interventions. It was a different way of looking at helping people who had what we called psychotic illness, which was in the past treated with just medication. But this is a way of looking at things psychologically. And in 2000, when I started, I remember I was a trained nurse for about 15, 16 years, thinking, why the hell had nobody taught me this when I was doing my training? Because I should have known this.
Yeah.
And I'm getting now to feel this book is one of these books I'm going to go, why the hell did I not know this? I mean, I don't feel the same way, but it's one of these things where it's going to kind of open up. You're going, oh, right, okay. That's not what I understood. This is going to be completely different. And I'm really, really excited about it.
Oh, God, stop it. You're going to make me get the credit card out.
Well, I think Santa's delivering one here, so let's just come round to mine with a few bottles and just read it together.
Yeah, no, awesome. I mean, there's inevitably going to be a lot more of these archives around, which will be kind of brought to life. I think one of their snippets on social media I saw, as the guy's photographing the pictures, he's pulling these wonderfully old books out of position, and the sheer treasure, the history, the knowledge that has journeyed through generations in those books. Oh my gosh, an incredible collection.
Yeah.
Which, as you say, should be shared and enjoyed. So
much like the spirit, it's not one of these things to just buy and stick in a bookshelf. We're going to have to share that knowledge.
Guys, I have to jump out to deal with something, but I'm going to leave you guys to continue.
No, we can finish up there, Mike. We're almost on the 3 hours, so I think we've actually beaten the record. So,
that's what I like. I hope there's some kind of crown in the post, or even a whiskey book of some significance.
I'll let you come round and read it, Dean.
Awesome.
I might even take it to you. We'll come to the warehouse at Coleburn and we'll read it together.
Yes,
I'll do that. That's a promise. I'll do that.
Fantastic.
Listen, Dean, thank you so much. I mean, you've been a great friend of ours for a long time now. Some great tastings. You're working for a fantastic company with some brilliant whiskies. We love Murray McDavid. We love everything that actually happens there. You know that because we've got our own shop exclusive now. So it's not a false statement. And it's fallen off the shelf. So every time I pour a dram for people, they love it and they buy a bottle. It's just fantastic. So it's a wonderful thing for us to have.
Great.
Well, thanks very much for coming on. We know we'll do this again. It's inevitable. This is not the first chat we'll have. We'll have more of those. Before we head off, so stick with us 2 seconds, Dean, when we go off live. But guys that are watching tonight, thanks again for joining in. So sorry for my technical difficulties. But hey, that's life. Next week, we've got Gary Mills. Callum Renton, who's a massive Glen Scotia fan, he's away, but he'll know we've got Gary Mills next week. Gary from Loch Lomond, so Loch Lomond and Glen Scotia. So please join us again next week for another chat. We'll have a break the week after that because we are on our Highland Whisky Academy, and we have a couple of guys, 2 or 3 guys coming along for the whole week. If anybody's following our social media or our emails, you'll know that there are tickets available for single days. Please go and have a look at that, guys, because there's some fantastic opportunities to go and see some distilleries you'll not have visited before. So have a look, see if it's something you want to do. Come and join us. I think there's around 4 or 5 tickets a day available, so there's not a lot. But please come and do that and join us for the week. So that's the first week of September. There'll be no Blether that week. And then we come back with a pretty exceptional Blether the week after that, which we'll talk about next week. Well, it's Rachel Barry, but hey, well, let's just drop that in there.
Absolutely.
So thanks very much, guys. We'll see you next week with Gary Mills. Dean, thank you so much again, and we'll have
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dean. I think we've all learned so much about independent bottling.
Oh, good, yeah.
Absolute pleasure. Yeah, just give Murray McDavid a follow on Instagram and my personal account if you want to see into the world of what we do a little bit more kind of behind the curtain. So yeah, give us a follow.
We'll do that.
Cheers. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you again soon. Good night.
Take care.
Good night.